Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais with another episode of The Yakking Show. And we are here for the week ending the 11th of April, 2025. The year's sort of galloping away and it's spring and we have sunshine. It's still cold. But anyway, first let's say hello to Kathleen. How are you, Kathleen?
I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you. And thank you also very much for tuning in. We have something different we want to chat about today, don't we, Peter?
We do indeed. And this is something that we find horrifying, and that is the number of people in Canada and in most of North America and elsewhere in the world who are dying from overdoses of street drugs, and particularly opioids like fentanyl. And Canada is a bad place for manufacturing of this stuff. So we did a bit of digging, and Kathleen's come across a really interesting video on this whole subject, which she's going to talk about in a moment. But just some statistics that in the last 12 months, 7,304 people in Canada died from opioid overdose, mainly fentanyl. And to put that into perspective, Canada lost 42,000 people in World War II, Army, Navy, Air Force, total 42,000. So in 8 years at the current rate, more people die in Canada from drug overdose than were killed in World War II. That is absolutely staggering. And in the USA, in 12 months to October 24, 54,000 people died from drug overdose, street drug overdose, primarily fentanyl. Horrifying, horrifying,
Yeah.
unnecessary deaths and a huge blight on society. And we have to wonder what's causing this. It's supply and demand. But let's get into the video, Kathleen.
Yeah.
I've watched the video.
Yeah.
You've watched it in great detail and made some
Yeah.
notes. So you tell us,
I did.
tell
I did,
everyone what you
Peter.
found.
And I want to share, you know what, we don't mind sharing other people's podcasts and helping to promote them, but this is a video that we watched, and it's from Daniela Camboni, the Daniela Camboni Show, and I really urge everyone to listen to this podcast. She interviewed a couple of interesting people. One of them was an investigative journalist. His name is Sam Cooper, who wrote the book Willful Blindness. He's a Canadian investigative
Hmm.
journalist who's studied or really did an in-depth report on the problem of fentanyl in this country, in Canada specifically. And it's just absolutely shocking, Peter. And what I find shocking is that our mainstream media here sort of downplays the significant role that Canada has in the whole fentanyl industry. I'll call it an industry. And and again, I really urge everybody to go to the Daniela Camboni show, and we're going to provide a link to that full podcast below our video because I think it's an important one. I think it's important for everybody to know.
Hmm.
But I've made some notes from this video, and they talk about the Mexican cartels and the Chinese Triads, which are organized crime syndicates, right? From the
Hmm.
Communist Party of China. They're widely set up in Toronto and Vancouver and are running the Western Hemisphere of money laundering. They are funding the logistics, basically, of the whole meth and fentanyl industries, right? Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
One of the other things that I learned is that, well, we don't have federal police in our ports, and organized crime has really taken over these ports, and only 0.5% of all containers, of all shipping containers that come into the fourth busiest port in North America are searched. That's appalling.
Wow. Yeah. 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 0.5. Wow. It's one in 200. And their profits are so great they can afford to lose probably one container is worth in 100 and still make a lot of money, right? So, yeah. So,
Right. Now, according to the people that were being interviewed on the Daniela Camboni show, the USA does not trust the Canadian border security and is holding back vital intelligence from the RCMP due to corruption
mhm.
concerns and due to broader concerns with systemic loopholes around the laws, which, again, there's so many There's just so many people that are involved in this whole operation
Hmm.
that needs to be uncovered. Um, in 2017, it said here that 85 tons of precursor meaning the stuff that they eventually will make fentanyl and meth with, were seized from a supposedly legitimate businessman in Vancouver. And they're also saying that the Chinese organized crime is set up in Canada. They have labs up in the mountains in BC, and they're working with the Mexican cartels. It's
Wow.
really shocking information. And I'm not exactly delivering the information very articulately here, but I'm just giving you like little bits of sound bites here of what this video is about, which I again urge everybody to go and listen to. Right, Peter? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Wow. No, it's terrible. And when you think of how the Canadian police and the Canadian government, the pressure they put on legitimate legal firearms owners to take their guns away,
Mhm.
and the effort that goes into it, and the money that goes into it, and they ignore the guns in the hands of criminals, largely in the guns in the hands of criminals.
Right.
If they have those resources to go after innocent, law-abiding, legal gun owners, why aren't they using those resources to stop the drug crime? And
Exactly.
I,
And
I, I don't have proof, but it can only indicate there is corruption at the highest levels. I mean, it's crazy.
well,
Yeah,
that's what they're saying. That's what they're saying. And
yeah,
just to
I
put it
know.
into perspective, Peter, I mentioned it, they seized 85 tons of
Yeah,
precursor. 85 tons produced into fentanyl, by the way, can kill everyone in North America a few times over.
yeah, it would do. Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. Oh, I
And
know. It's wicked.
and although we hear that, on mainstream news that it's only 1%, Canada is only responsible for 1% of the production of fentanyl. Well, local law enforcement in Canada is in fact they know better, right?
Absolutely. And with a 4,500-mile border, largely undefended, right?
Yeah.
The opportunities for illegal drugs to slip across the border are huge. There's no way that we can police the whole border unless they put a fence up. So even if they pay attention at legal border crossings, where there's a will, there's a way. And with the profit potential in illegal drugs, people will get them across, no question.
And they again in this video they go on to say that the Chinese Communist Party and organized crime is so embedded at places like the Globe and Mail, the CBC, the RCMP, bank regulators, and once anybody is prosecuted, it just gets dropped once it reaches the top. It's such corruption,
Mhm.
Peter. It's just astounding.
Well,
Yeah.
we've got an election coming up on the 28th, and we've
Mhm.
already seen one of the Liberal Party candidates step down, Chinese origin, because he was accused of influencing voting in the previous election, right?
Mhm.
And attempting to put pressure on other candidates to support the Communist Party, Chinese Communist Party, in the coming election. So, after much public outcry and some very good investigative journalism, the Liberal Party has been forced to stand him down, and he says he's resigned or not standing again. But that was due to public pressure. Kathleen, I want to go on a slightly different tack while we got a
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah.
Why is there such a demand for the drugs?
I
Because we
was
know
just
in
about to
marketing
add,
that there's supply and demand, right?
I was just going to bring that up, Peter. It
Wow.
comes back to what you had said earlier about supply
Synergy.
and demand. If people would just, oh my gosh, just steer away from that stuff, there wouldn't be a demand for, like there's just it would dry
But
up. But
I know. And
it's
And it's
addiction.
easy. No, I know. It's easy for me as a boomer to say things were better when I was young. We tend to do that. But when I look back, and those of you in the audience who followed my life will know that I spent 10 years in the military in Rhodesia in a terrorist war. I didn't see a lot of action, but things were not good in that country at that time. It was
Mhm.
tough, right? And our friends were getting killed, our families were getting killed and murdered. But very few people, a minute percentage turned to drugs. And if they did go to drugs, it was what we call dacha, which is marijuana, right? There was almost hard drugs were almost unheard of. I know they were more difficult to obtain. Opium was pretty easy to obtain, and, which is like heroin, the sort of former version of heroin. But very few people turned to it. People went through divorces, they went through car accidents, they went through loss of jobs, and they didn't turn to drugs. Some turned to alcohol. So what's happened in 50 years? Why do we have such a huge percentage of society turning to drugs? You got any ideas, Kathleen?
I don't, Peter. I really don't. I think it's perhaps the accessibility of it all. And oftentimes it only takes one time to get you addicted to this stuff, right? It's not like you have to
I
do
agree.
it over and over again one time, which is scary in and of
Sure,
itself.
it
But
is. But
why you would choose to even start even once, even if it's, you want to experiment with this stuff. Oh my gosh, I just stay clear of it.
but
Just don't get
but
it.
draw a parallel with alcohol. Alcohol is as freely available as now as it has been for 100 years, right?
Hmm.
It's the consumption of alcohol is largely dictated by people's earning ability and whether they can, and people spend money on alcohol that shouldn't. But I don't believe that rates of alcoholism have gone up
Hmm.
in parallel to rates of drug addiction, right? Okay, laws have got tougher in that sentences, punishment for drunk driving is a lot harsher than it was 50 years ago. I accept that. And I should think that's had some effect on slowing down drinking. We still have people convicted of drunk driving. Still have people getting drunk. We still have people drinking alcohol. But I don't believe the rate has gone up. I haven't got the facts in front of me, but just an observance is I don't think we have a huge increase in alcoholism like we do in drugs. So yeah, you're right. Easy supply, but there's more, and I believe it's a basic problem in society. And I would speculate that the last couple of generations, in many ways, have had life a little bit easier than previous generations, and haven't had to work as hard for the basics, and are looking for instant gratification and turn to drugs. I don't know. That's just my thinking, but I may be way off beam.
And I don't have the answers up to that either, Peter. I mean, there's a
No,
lot of theories, a lot of speculation as to what's happening, but uh, when you get inside a person's, an individual who's going through the addiction and just try to understand one person at a time, what made you turn here? Why here?
sure. I
Um,
don't.
yeah.
I do think that, like in one of our provinces in British Columbia, they established a whole lot of safe injection sites, and they even
Mm.
supplied drugs to drug addicts. Now, supplying drugs to drug addicts, it just doesn't. How's that going to cure them? Right? It's just aiding and abetting their problem. So anyway, that's we've probably exhausted that subject.
Sure.
It's terrible. It is an
Yeah.
absolute tragedy, and it's so sad that with all the resources our government has, they're not doing more about it. So I think that's my last comment on that one. Kathleen, what are we doing on health?
Well,
What
Peter,
are
I
we
just want to
recommending this week for
give,
health?
yes, I want to do plug here for Dr. Robert Morse. Dr. Morse, we just absolutely love him. This is his book. There's been an updated edition to this book, but it's a wealth of information for if you're interested in cleaning your body. You know what? It's spring and people clean their houses, but they fail to clean their bodies. And I think that's very important. And so I'm going through a cleanse right now, as I told you. So I've got tons, oh, well, tons. It feels like it at times. I have many of his tinctures here, and they help for a detox. There's parasites for parasites. There's lymphatic drainage. There's for kidney support, which is all important for a detoxification, and even the GI broom that I talk a lot about,
Hmm.
which is cleaning out your gut, taking out all that sludge out of your intestinal tract. And then a clean diet, of course, it has to come down to that, right? You have to
Sure.
fuel your body with beautiful fruits and vegetables. Raw is what we're doing right now. And yeah, enjoying it. And we will provide a link to the detox kits because Dr. Morse provides these, makes it easy. You can buy a kit and work at it over a month and feel it's an investment in your own body, right? And we will
Good.
provide
Yeah,
a link to that.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And also, if you put in Yakking Show in the discount code, you will get a discount. So that's it
You
for
will
me,
indeed.
Peter.
You will. Okay, thanks for that, Kathleen. And I'm going to turn things around a little bit. And because you've showed our audience the book and mentioned the book, that is our featured book for the week. And there'll be a link to get that book in the description and in our newsletter. There we go. The Detox Miracle Source Book. You can get that with the link we will provide. So let me tell you what's been happening on the show over the last couple of weeks. Well, we didn't have a published guest episode this week. We had the one the previous week with Logan Wright from Greco Gum. Coming up next week, yes, on the 15th of April, will be a really exciting, sizzling episode with Dr. Carol Rems, who is a very interesting lady. And the topic of her episode, and she has a book with the same title, is Best Sex Ever After Menopause. And I mean, I was blushing on this one, but Kathleen took it in her stride. She has lots of great ideas for women and for men as well. So, a very interesting episode. And it's not all about sex, it's about life as well. So, good one to watch. And then 2 weeks after that, on the 29th, will be Caroline Farquhar, who is an expert on supplements, nutritional supplements. And she talks about the importance of supplements. And in the episode, she names the 5 that she considers the most important. And you'll have to watch or listen to the episode to find out what those 5 are. And then on the 13th of May will be a gentleman called Ethan Pompeo, who talks about CBD from cannabis. And he has a slightly different take from Dee Manny, who we interviewed a few months ago. Her episode was published 2 months ago. And he has a very interesting medical history, and he had a certain condition which he explains in the episode and that's what drove him first to marijuana and then to start a company to produce CBD products. And a very interesting episode. He talks about a lot of stuff on there. So that's what's coming up. What I'm going to tell you is this may well be the last weekly wrap up under the Yakking Show banner. We have our new website, thehealthdeclassified.com, up and running. A couple of minor tweaks to finish, and we'll be switching to the new brand probably from next week, but we will put more details in an email. So watch out for new episodes coming under the Health Declassified banner. Obviously, all the old episodes will stay on the Yakking Show. There will be links between the 2 websites. As far as YouTube and Spotify go, we will just rebrand the channels. Facebook, they will just continue with the new name. And Kathleen, I do think that's about it, except to remind people that we've got some really good guests coming up. To make sure you don't miss out on them, hop onto either website, yakkingshow.com or healthdeclassified.com. Find at the bottom of the front page, there's a form. You can sign up for our weekly newsletter. We only send you 1 email a week. Just tell you who's on this week or next week and who's coming in the following weeks. And Kathleen's deep dive into a health topic and the health tip and our featured book. And that really is it from me. So thanks for listening. Over to you, Kathleen.
Thank you also very much for tuning in. And until next week, take care, everyone. Bye bye.